And speed is something too that you should experiment with in your own work. Like speed gets the mind out of it. Because when the mind is too much into it, it follows like a pattern. And I'm always trying to like look for ways to break the pattern. It's too dry. And you notice it dragging and too dry. You get streakiness and stuff. This idea is like really feel the wetness of the paint.
Yeah, I just serve myself a shit and try to come out and I'm making I do this guy, I do this guy. Yeah, that's why you're saying I feel like I'm making progress, but the colors are nice. Yeah, harmony.
I live in a world of despair, of darkness, and living is the only thing that we deal with.
Looking back at these shirts, that's blended them. I was trying to make mine in terms of like separating kind of like colors. It's almost like the patch kind of is adjacent to it, but they're not. I mean, that's normal blending, but on the point of that color, that's not.
Yeah, it's more of a rough top on the outside.
Smooth.
Okay. I use that like a general rule when I select the next color to try to like connect it to the pre. I'll mix up a black for this painting and I'll save a mixture of it for the whole rest of the time I'm working on it. It could be like weeks that I truth serum because I use it to render with. And it's a black that's made out of the other colors in the painting. There's all the other colors in it already.
Interesting.
And I use it for shadowing and for putting shadow. Like it takes a flat arrangement of shapes and it describes form out of flatness. The mark making is the meaning, and there's like when you make a mark from like a pure place that's not contrived, not trying to be anything, it just is what it is. That's like the tradition that I've come out of. So when I'm making those kind of marks, it's not about like I'm trying to make something. It's just like feeling that mark and the energy of it. And I think about changing direction. That's why turning the paper is important, because a lot of times I'm making gestures. There's a certain way you have a habit of making it go. We go one way, and turning it allows for those gestures that are habitual to overlap in interesting ways, and the movement quality becomes more interesting when you rotate. So I'm just going to show you through like the stuff that you see on the wall here. It's very much in this kind of realm of what we're talking about now. Gesture. I developed the language with a palette knife of making marks, because a lot of times when you smear with a palette knife, one stroke blends the color in a way that you can't do with a brush. Get this thing to the brush in. So to super simplify things to a point where we can all kind of like use this as a model, sometimes I will take a color. A lot of times when I start these, let me get some fresh paint. Can I have the blue and the red? Yeah, sure.
Oh.
That's number 2.
The energy of the
I'll make it. It's good.
Class canceled.
Okay.
No, we want to break stuff.
I'm like a
Those look pretty good.
bull in a china shop, and I use a lot of force that I probably don't have to. So I'm going to use this because it's a little stronger. It won't break on me. I don't want to break another one right now. Ben was like, use the same things that they're going to use because you have to know like what they're using so you can do it the same way. But I just, for the demonstration, I'm going to use this. A lot of times I'll think about things in groups of three. There's like rule of threes. And a lot of the painting stuff I do, if I'm going to put an element in, I put it in 3 places. A little bit here, a little bit there, maybe a little bit there. Next thing I do, a little bit here, there. And I follow it as a general rule. It often goes astray, but rule of threes I use all the time. So it's like this. Sometimes I'll just put like 1, 2. It doesn't matter where it lands. And then with those little puddles, I'll just like scrape it away. It doesn't matter how it goes. I'm just looking to reduce the texture. Each time in a different way.
Wow. Looks like your piece.
And I just look for heavy spots and I just like get rid of it all.
Wow.
Okay. So it's touch, change the color. Yeah, 1, 2. It doesn't matter where it goes.
No, it's flowing.
Sorry, neighbor. Oh yeah.
Yeah, awesome looks already. But it's all gonna disappear. You gotta let go. Don't get attached. Just think, oh, it looks good. Maybe I can work around it. It's not the point. You gotta build up. How did white pass?
Don't worry about your neighbors either.
Oh, this is the point where when we're doing our festival collabs and stuff, and I get out the big brush and I do that. There's a classic video of us at the eclipse where I do one of those big things, and Damon's like down here, and he's like, he's like all splattered all over him.
Wow.
Already, look at all the compounding effects and layers and shit that's happening. Okay, now that's like one way I handle it, and there's not a lot of wet on wet mixing here because like when I do the scrape, the next scrape it's already dry there, so you're getting a different type of build-up look. Now I'm gonna switch to like actually putting more paint on there. Doesn't matter where, and then maybe I put a little bit of that there. A little bit of that there. Okay, so there's a lot of paint right there. So if I take some white and like smear into it, and then I go back and forth across these passages, and it's already the gradient that happens in that with the pressure. Sometimes it's lighter, sometimes it's heavier.
If y'all won't get any closer, go for it.
I like that shape next to that. One thing I don't like, what I see is like this primary color thing. I like in between colors. I actually forgot that I wanted to start this off by having us all make a little preset palette. So I'm going to just switch back to what I wanted to start with. If you take a puddle of color with the 3 and make a mixture out of it, I don't know how many people have ever mixed colors with a palette knife like this on a palette where you're trying to like make a homogeneous mixture. But I do this a lot to make premixes in small quantity. Now I do it in bigger quantity by putting it in like a yogurt cup with a lid and I shake it and you can mix up like a whole pint of premix. But this is a classical way to mix colors with a palette knife. Get it nice and even. You have to go back and forth a bunch of times. Circular motions help to like distribute. That's like pretty homogeneous right there. and then you put that to one corner of your palette, and then you like, okay, I want another color. I'm going to go for like a light blue or something. And for this next round of palette knife brushwork, the colors are going to look so much better than if you just use the straight red, yellow, and blue. So when you guys go down and sit, after I'm done with the demo, start by making like 3 or 4, or however fast you are, 5 pre-mixes. Okay, I kind of like that mixture. Put that there. And then like maybe an off-white. Okay, that looks pretty good. Nice off-white. Immediately, because all the colors are in this off-white, it's going to tie into every single other thing. Okay, like that. Push that over there. Save it. Maybe that's enough for the demo. So, and if I try to like stay away from the good stuff, it's going to feel stiff and I'm not going to feel free. So I'm just going to let go of all the stuff I think that looks good and just start putting it on. And sometimes I'll just aim to fill up some of the white space with this color. Rule of threes, 1, 2. Actually, they're 2. I always check this rule of threes thing. You never want something directly underneath. I think a little skewed is better. So it looks horizontally that none of them are lined up. A different place. I call it like a constellation. Like when you look in the stars, you see 3 stars and you kind of draw lines in between them. With my rule of threes, I always draw like lines in between them. And what does that triangle shape look like? It's got to be an interesting way it sits on the page. So I would say like that doesn't work. So I would extend this or something. And then maybe a little more like here. And if you build the composition with this rule of this constellation and make a triangle out of your rule of 3 things, the composition can be really good that way. More than I'm going to run out of paint quickly. And you spontaneously explode the brush through an area. It doesn't matter. The more you don't care and your speed and pressure create these unexpected things. Oh, that's right there. Amazing detail in that right there. So after a couple passes like this, when I start to see some good stuff in the middle, in a few places, I'm like, okay, and there's some white space left over. I mean, I don't have to do too much more of this stuff, but I like that so much. I might try to reproduce that in a few other places. This primary red and stuff I don't really like, so I'm going to go over that area. Put a bunch of stuff down. When you turn it, I'm like, okay, now I feel different about the composition. I want to get stuff into some of these other areas. And once you gotta like, there's like some cool details there, and there's some other areas I don't really like. There's gonna be a moment I switch to the brush. Maybe I'll just show you real quick one more before I take that to the next level, because I notice my mind is looking at thinking about a certain way. I want to show you what more liberal application would look like. You can break that one too, I believe. Wow. Right? Like the color mixing off of that spontaneous mark. Unbelievable. The references to shadow and light. I can't paint that if I try to like subtly go in with a small brush and detail a shadow. That spontaneity is what I think is poetic and magical, and the detail inside of a passage like that is just incredible. That's why I love the palette. Like, all the details in this, it's just incredible. I think a tiny bit of warmth. Somewhat, you got a cool thing going. Maybe a little bit more blue to make it more cool too. At this point. And then a little bit of warmth, just like sometimes a tiny bit. And you just so there's warmth in this now, and if you just put that in a few places, even like that amount of warmth next to everything else, oh, it really like adds completely different color, temperature, vibe. So at this point, there's a places where it's really thick, and I love to do around with my fingers, where I'll go around and I'll just like with my finger like try to pick up those areas, just so that the next round won't have to deal with submarines so much. And in that process, you get a whole nother range of detail effects. Sometimes I'll scoop up some from here. And I'm like, where would that look good? Maybe I'll find a white space that doesn't have paint on it yet and just smear it. Oh, look at those details with that little bit of warmth in there.
Can you describe what you mean by submarines?
Submarines are bits of thick paint that are from the beginning of the painting that you later paint over, and you see the submarine coming through. It has nothing to do with that new layer.
It's still wet underneath the thing, and
no, totally dry.
It's totally dry, but it's a large clump of
slime. Yeah, like some dried chunk. If I were to paint and try to do a gradient over that, you'd see that bit of bump sticking through, but it gets in the way of reading the gradient. Those are what I call submarines.
All right.
So I try to like make sure there's not too many future submarines lingering. So I'll look for the places that's the thickest and just get rid of them in a bunch of places. Sometimes I'll even use my finger to do some gradient stuff and smear it around and fill up white space that way, because there's something your finger can do that's so soft that a brush can't even do. You're gonna get some white. I mean, it's a bunch of experimentation to get to a point where I feel really good about controlling the amounts of this stuff. So fingers, like I invite you to explore what it's like to get in there with your fingers. And then also on one page, we might feel free to go all the way to the edges. And your second one, try to do one with like really thick paint with the palette knife in the middle, and then switch to the brush. And just try to cover the remaining white space by taking whatever is wet that's there and just like letting it be whatever it is, and whatever mixtures come, and just cover up the remaining white space with whatever mixture comes from that leftover white. And remember the crisscrossing stroke to eliminate streakiness. Sometimes if it's too streaky one way, do the opposite.
Are we starting a new piece of paper, or can we do this technique over the ones we've already done?
We can do this technique over the ones we've already did. It's good to try one on white so that you can do what I'm doing now, which is like, instead of going over what's there, doing it with whatever's left. There's not enough there's not enough wetness to do it there. Now is the time. Feel free to use as much water as you want. Sometimes even like mostly water. Even the schmutz on your brush sometimes leaves a beautiful surface, or the type of color that comes from it being wet. This transparency is a totally different look, and it plays as a contrast to all the other types of opaque paint. for the sake of getting this over with, I'm just going to do it as fast as possible. So there's a variety of stuff going on already. There's like super thick. You got some of these moments where it's incredible detail. Some places where it's like opaque. Some places where it's thin. And they're all like operating in one piece. And it's like almost ready to let go. I don't like this little section right here. And I think about like having some areas that are real without, because I had a tendency in my earlier painting life to crowd every inch with detail, and I developed a term. I'll call it PPI, TPI, transitions per inch. And I use that talking about the murals because like certain areas that have a high TPI took a long time to paint. And the lower TPI, you can do much faster. Like how many times the color changes, or there's a gradient, or there's like, it's broken. Those are like transitions. So an area like this, there's like almost no TPI. There's like a subtle TPI from red into this white and a little bit darker over here. But I think about some areas being like without a lot of transitions, like just drawing, or it's like some kind of, you're right. Sometimes I'm writing. That's what it feels like to me.
It's like that.
Yeah, feels like fencing. I don't want to.
Fencing?
No,
I was thinking of like
a dark color. Those are very different.
Yeah.
Is he over here?
Definitely not like you.
Watch out for your neighbors now. This is gonna take out all of you. Wow, it looks like your pieces. Sorry.
Yeah, like for me, that's like reminds me of painting from the 50s, where I don't know if they looked like they were fencing when they were doing it. Probably not. It's like my way, but the randomness of the layers is interesting. Just it builds up in a way, but it's all about the feeling. It's not about like the form. Form is a byproduct of the process. The process of doing it is what it's all about for me at this stage.
Yeah.
So yeah, that way of thinking about just feeling this way, that way. It's almost like Tai Chi and high speed. Let's see. Anything else I can add before you guys go into this round?
Oliver, is there anything about the ones up on the wall here you want to mention?
The two black and white ones over there, that's like mostly palette knife done with like this size palette knife. It's pretty much what I showed you, like this kind of thing, but with this. And like you can put on a lot of paint, like 10 times more than I'm using now. And that allows for that millimeter or 2 millimeters of thick paint. When you're making a stroke, it like squeezes through. One color squeezes through and you end up with gradients that are impossible to achieve any other way. Kind of like in there.
Do you feel like this technique works differently on paper, canvas, wood? Like, do you have to treat it differently?
Kind of similar.
So before you do this, do you have a theme in your head, or just like I don't know what's gonna happen?
It's about clearing your head of any ideas about how you want it to be.
Okay.
It has to be
Nothing.
clear. You have to, nothingness.
Okay.
It's like absolute nothingness. It's like
Okay.
this very moment of taking material and the tool, engaging with the surface. That's what it's all about. It's not about making something. It's not about building up something. It's
Right.
about the act, the pureness of that feeling of making the mark. I mean, maybe you don't want to be a fencer. Maybe you want to be, do slow motion Tai Chi.
Right.
But if you're in that feeling of that moment, you're just like clear, the mark will be true and pure, and it won't look contrived. It won't look like you're trying to make it something. It'll just be what it is, and it'll be perfect. That's the idea.
Does it translate to working vertical on a wall? Obviously, this is ideal.
Yeah,
for that, but
I found it more challenging on a wall because stuff gravity wants to pull it down. But I do it. It doesn't allow for so much of that like millimeter thick squish through blending. It's
So big painting, you'll just lay it flat and work on the floor.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I love to work on the floor.
So at which stage you start to like, let's say, I want to make it like that, you know? I mean, because
hard edge and detailed.
yeah, the details and then start to take shape and forms,
Yeah.
more forms, right?
We're gonna do that tomorrow.
Okay.
We're gonna take some of this stuff,
Uh-huh.
and then I'm gonna teach you like a rendering technique that will be able to put shadow and like separate the space,
I see.
make certain things look like they're volumetric and some things receding back. But now it's just about the purity of like abstract mark making. A lot of
Okay.
times I just like to, yeah.
I think that's really exciting about
Smear
this too,
it.
because it like gets you started, gets you going before your thinking mind is like overly perfecting and everything, right? It gets you started with something, and then you build on it from there.
Right.
This is what got me hooked.
That's what I like about it. That's
Right.
like free up rather than just start with like a drawing and color it
Exactly.
in. You know, it's like
Yeah.
when I get working loosely and then building up to the refining that just happens naturally. Like it makes sense. You know, like starting this freely.
Yeah. So if you start to think, then stop,
over.
right? Just move.
What do you do? Don't quit thinking.
Also, a lot of times, if I can remember, I wish sometimes I could remember all these different types of moves and then sequence them like one after the other, and then it'll be perfect. You'll have the variety that I'm looking for. I always forget. Like,
No, that's
I
good.
forget to do like half of them, and then it ends up just being whatever I can remember. But like one of the things I try to remember is like having at least a final touch pass with a towel. I wipe off some more submarines. And when it starts to get half dry, the type of mark that is left from a submarine wipe is different than you can get with a brush. It's different than you can get with a finger. It's different than what you can get with a palette knife. And I like that variety. I want there to be all different types of touches, not have the same type of touch everywhere. It's important for me that there's a variety. So like oscillating through these things, the knife, the brush, the finger, the towel, all those different things are like multiple different languages all like together. And I'll go around on my work. Usually I'll spend a lot more time carefully looking in the light for the submarines and getting every last one reduced. Because I know if I don't do that, then I end up with these areas that I don't want to paint over, which leads me to then the phase where I use sandpaper and blades and I scrape the surface all the way down and I grind away at stuff. And that allows me to reset and like work over those areas. But that process of like creation and destruction, creation, destruction, I feel like that resonates with my view of life too. Like that's the universe. It's constantly in a state of flux, change, birth and death, and creation and destruction. So I like the work to be a metaphor for that. So like sometimes it's important for me to build it up, and if it looks good, it's got to be destroyed, and it has to go through that cycle like a number of times before it feels like a pure expression. It's another way of thinking to help like let go of this feeling of attachment to how it looks. Actually, I love this one. So there's just a couple of different approaches. Maybe try to do a bunch of the stuff I just show you and to see where it leads you. Maybe you like one particular way of touching it and you want to do a lot more. Like feel free to do an entire piece just with your hands. Some of these are just finger paintings. Like, for example, this is like 100% fingers. And a lot of them have a lot of finger work in it. That's like one figure. It's like almost, there's no brush at all. It's all done with fingers. So yeah, get into it with your hands. And let's see, anything else I could add? We're done.
I think you're good.
Timing?
I think that's a ton of
Enough?
stuff. Yeah, let people get going.
Kick off this next round.
Oliver, what's your trick for getting the white paint into the thing?
I can do
It seems
it.
like too thick.
How to pour it in?
Yeah, like
Is it gesso?
It's kind of been a little insulting, but I've also been working with it.
Learning how to run the router. I know like very well.
Your motion of that reminds me of like people who are like super refined on like certain food. Like when they have to just like how can fuck but now that you need to get out.
Yeah, that's right. I learned on that. But like I said,
If you're making video, I'm making one too.
I'm hearing about like this things like not only if I grab
You use a chisel or you can also use a brush.
no, I like the idea of like
That's doing it like the chisel makes transparent
Okay.
mixing light, and I also mixed matte medium,
So-
right? Because I like mediums.
that's what's up.
and like
glazes on
like check this like
Yeah, sick, dude.
glaze on a fucking
Thanks for appreciating it. It makes me feel like my not some just like random shit that
like just like
no one's ever gonna like care about.
swoops and then fucking
I think I'm getting it there.
swoops,
Random shit.
and then like
But I think I
and then you get like these like nice
people
little
that are
like,
painters,
comes through.
they can appreciate it more than like somebody that doesn't.
Like nice.
My next
I have like an instant Mars One stencil around here.
So
No, but this is sick. Like I like the physical dynamics of it. 'Cause that- So he does that with airbrushing, where he has
That's so cool.
grayish. It's not bad for truth serum. I want to like nudge it away from blue purple a little bit. So maybe just a tiny bit more yellow. And it's almost look like those are bars floating on a darker background. And I'm just sort of setting up for the first round. And I'll come back later and really carefully adjust these edges maybe a little bit. I want the blue to look like it's on top of the green. That if I make this a cage area and stop right at the blue edge. Down there. And we're like, come out, get really fat. and then twist and head back down to the finishing point down there. And then I'll always like mathematically dividing. So I could draw this out with a pencil and get it all right, but I figured out a way to do it just improvising the tape. So I'll do one halfway. And then let's say halfway in between that one and then halfway between the other one. Actually, if I want this to look like it's bent around, the middle will be the widest, and then by the time you get to either edge, it gets smaller. It's another mathematics. So this one is not half, but it's half minus a little. And slowly come away from it till it's at the halfway point. And then this would all, one of those would all be fill. We'll do that again here. And because we're so short on time, I'm really rushing this, but I think it's still going to be valuable to see. Job is a work of art in itself. I spent like 4 hours on it. It was like 1,000 pieces of tape and it went all across the giant painting. And then in the end, all we got is this little tiny dot. But it's so, I like that dichotomy between like almost you can't see it all and this ridiculous huge amount of time it takes to do it. I like that dichotomy. It gives power.
It'd be funny if you could like take it off and like put it on another canvas so you have this like
will be the foreground element. And what I'm going to paint is actually going to be a new background. It's going to force all this yellow to be like lines on top of my, I don't know what yet. And I'll figure that out when I paint under it. And you make decisions on how to paint over it. Like if you want that yellow to pop forward as lines, you could do, if you put black right here and faded the black out over the tape, it would make those yellow lines like float. You know, and just set that back. So, or if you did a gradient over it, it would make those yellows float over the gradient.
So at this point in the tape show, you're gonna pick like you're gonna basically plan out like, okay, I think at this area I want to be painting black, and you can do that.
Yeah, when I start that painting process, which I think we'll do this afternoon for that demo, I'll show you like how I make those decisions. So like right here, it would be best to do it this way. And I try to vary it so it's painted over differently in every place and how you do the color. Some places I might choose to like just paint this in with like a gradient or use truth serum over there or wash with a big brush over there or small little chips added in there. The more I vary it, the more interesting it is, like compounding all the relationships and the possibilities of juxtaposition. So maybe it's time to go start practicing a tape job. Maybe think about spending like, oh, maybe you guys are going to try to do this and then it's going to look like an Oliver Vernon tape job. But the challenge is you might want to copy my way to learn it, but you got to do it your own way. So how are you going to do it differently? How can I possibly do it? That's a me way. And you'll be forced to like do it in a different way because you can't just do it my way. You'll be just, if someone sees your work and sees you do that, they're gonna be like, so you have to make it your own. But in the study phase, you can go ahead and try to copy that to learn because you'll probably if you just try to do I'm just gonna be like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Strong color. That's one way of like compounding the effects. And also like what color it goes as this off red. But if you had like a green or you want to make it look orange. And again, you start like emptying the brush load out. And then I get to then you come down to feather whip and you feel the bristles again. You see how there's building up a tape? Don't like that. Don't like that. You need a little more medium to make sure that that doesn't happen. That doesn't look good when you peel the tape. And then to change the angle of your stroke to get it into those places it doesn't want to go into easily. Going all the way. And my decision to have it come over the tape that much is because the feather
This
will.
is shoots you?
Yeah. Sure. Sometimes just at the tape line, your stroke is interrupted. It's most important that it's continuous right past the tape, so that when you peel the tape, it's almost like a Photoshop cut. It's real sharp. Because sometimes if you like go up to a taped edge and there's a gap or something, it takes away from the reading. So if you're gonna do it like that, try to like do it so that you see your stroke right across the tape. Maybe I'll do it again over here. We're trying to find the tape. I can see it. I can barely even see where it ends or begins. I don't really care so much. I see some texture where the tape ends. I'm going to try to like not have that. So maybe be something to like clean off the texture wherever you have an end of a tape. What's going on here? No, it's not good at all. Again. Somehow I just find it very effective for like coming in at certain points. It's that from the edge. Some tape here. I don't want to teach you to be like hasty, and I feel like that's what I'm doing by trying to rush through this. But right, I'm just gonna make my assessments. Is there anywhere I can do something and enhance this? Come on. So it's almost ready for a test peel to see like how this is all gonna look. Is there anything I could like last minute thing? This thing, I want to like isolate it a little bit, so remove it from its background. So I'm going to paint around it. Have to, and he's like, "Oh no," because he thinks it'll mess it up.
Yeah.
But if you're tight with your touches and everything, you don't have to wait.
Do you worry about fingers?
I don't. With fingerprints and smudge
Yeah, I
and
was
stuff.
getting fingerprints all over this shit.
Oh yeah, you gotta be mindful of where you put your fingers and whether they have paint on them or not, and how you pull the tape. You can pull it away from the edge.
That's pretty clean without the mat.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Nice.
Wow.
So major power in that contrast. And particularly because this is like would be an early stage of the painting. Fingerprints, smudges, fucked up edges that you don't like. I don't care because I know it's going to go on this journey of other moves and layers and stuff. And all those parts I'm glad they're there because it gives me a reason why to work over those parts. Otherwise, if everything's perfect, I'm like, oh, I don't know where to work.
Just want to be a neighbor.
It's the main line.
Yeah.
Totally. Straight up chase
I was
it.
gonna say.
Yeah.
Follow that black most important word. It doesn't matter if it's exact. That's where it's not the tape.
You guys are like
grateful that you even conceive. For me, I'm like, yeah, do it. I'm gonna do retreats, and then you're like, yeah. I was also kind of just like, oh shit. Oh damn. No, not really.
And I have a great way of like lovingly talking about them, about how they influence me, and that is contagious. And I'm like, I gotta harness that power, like, and turn on the next generation because I know what it's like to feel turned on by influence, and I feel like I can do it because after that I go right to the next group, and that's you guys. So thank you for being this first group. I think you're really helping me kickstart what might be like a long run of doing more of this.
We'll be
When Cosmo showed up, has a special skill set that was like perfectly ready to plug into my team here, and like he was like digitally inclined, and he helped take care of the posting and all that, and the Instagram stuff, which I wouldn't have done without him. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
It's a lot to like come out here again after being here not too long ago just to help me with this workshop. And his skill set is very special to me. He's very organized with his thinking. He's done workshops. His little prompts to remind me, oh, this much time's left, or maybe we should talk about this part, organize it by maybe mentioning this and that. I'm like, oh, those elements help me feel so confident that it's a nice, tidy structure that we have here. So thank you for helping so much to make this smooth and good.
And for the tunes.
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing the vibes, everybody.
Yeah, that was super fun.
I had a blast last night. I didn't want to go. I was like, I wanted to sit down with you guys and geek out and just like paint and talk about painting the whole night. I was like, damn it, I didn't get a chance. I started the finger painting.
Purified time.
But yeah.
Each day, find an act of kindness and beauty that belongs to that day alone.
I would do something, I'm like, I could notice myself like predicting my own moves. Like, how could I break that? And that question, like, how do you break your own predictability, makes you like force yourself to do it in a weird, different way. So like, constantly forcing myself to do it different. So this is like a very easy decision to go straight across. So I'm like, how can I break the prediction? Okay, well, I have it only go halfway and do something else. Go back to here and then